everybody, BK and Steve with Masada Tactical and Roger that. We are back. So first of all, to answer the question from last week, which one is better?
Yeah.
Haribo or what was the other one?
Albanese.
Albanese. I think that the few comments that we got on the video said Haribo.
So
I'm sorry,
not right.
I'm just saying that's.
I was a Haribo original. I'm an Albanese fan. It's like a little gummy bear fiesta and atomic orgasm in your mouth when you just shove
And you really can't argue with that. I think the comments we got most is that the flavor of the Albanese was better, but the texture of the Haribo was
a little harder.
a little better.
If
So-
you like hard things in your mouth, hey, great.
Well, I
I
think-
like it soft and gooey. I like it soft and gooey.
And now that
Enough
we
said.
put that one to rest, we are going to pull a winner for that pair of silkies, so stay tuned for that. But moving forward, we actually want to talk about a serious topic today. I'll be teaching in New Jersey this Saturday, so if you don't have plans, we still have a couple spots left. We're going to be teaching a CQC class, pistol and carbine. And initially, when we were asked to teach this class, it was designed for law enforcement, and then we adapted it somewhat to accommodate civilians as well on this specific class. But one of the things that came up in the discussion in the emails, and something that Steve and I discuss a lot, and I know Steve has a lot of personal feedback to give on the topic, is the whole idea of how poorly we train law enforcement, specifically when it comes to firearms. And the analogy I like to say when I teach classes is we teach police officers how to pass a test, a qualification course of fires. We don't teach them how to fight with a gun, right? And which is why we see a lot of police officers missing targets under stress, or being altogether afraid of using the firearm or using it in a tactical manner that is not suitable for the environment or that specific circumstances. Because what I find personally, and Steve, tell me what you think, is that when we get into a pattern of, all right, you know the test because it's a test same test every time. You pull the gun, you fire the required numbers of rounds, you do the good old look left and right, which we're going to talk about that in a second as well. And then you reholster, you move forward, you move back, you do what you do. It's a dance, it's a kata, it's a pre-described sequence, which is not how a fight works. Very rarely, if at all, do I see police officers being physically strained, okay, so trying to shoot after exertion, when we throw other variables that force them make a cognitive decision under stress, those elements I feel are missing. What do you think?
I'm going to play a little devil's advocate. So, I've seen the exponential change for the better in firearms training. As a former firearms instructor myself, I agree 100%. The training was very systematic, very stationary. You're shooting at a paper target. That's hurts. And bad guys.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yes. I have seen a newer generation of firearms instructors that are more open-minded. Most of them have empirical experience from combat and stuff like that. So they know how to take the resources they have, and most of the time it's very minimal, and try to incorporate that stress factor. So I will give the benefit to that. But overall, yes, unfortunately with firearms, there's a balance sometimes that you have to juggle between the person who's never fired a firearm before and the male or female who was in the military, they're proficient, and they're trying to either break habits or they want to go right to the top. And unfortunately, that systematic idea, it just causes a lot of conflict.
And I think the systematic idea is one of the things that need to be changed. So I got into on one of the social media platforms, actually with someone from your agency, and we kept going back and forth because I was saying something about being threat focused, okay, and more of a point shoot idea than sighted shooting specifically for beginner law enforcement officers, right? So if we teach, and again, I know this is going to generate some feedback, and I welcome it. I want to hear that feedback. But in my mind, anybody that's been to the range know that lining up front side with target, front side with rear side, so side alignment, side picture, right? And then all those fundamentals that follow from trigger squeeze to follow through to controlling your breathing and so forth. None of that is going to happen in a real stressful event. I don't have the time to line up sights, not even front sight. One thing that people forget to mention is that under stress, extreme adrenaline endorphin dump, okay, one of the side effects is pupil dilation, right? So I can't even focus on front sight even if I wanted to. And when you ask people that have been in gunfights if they've seen sights, most of them would say no, at least not initially. They may have been able to capture a few seconds into the fight. But the reality is that that is time, a luxury that we don't have, right? We need to teach officers how to win the fight in the first few seconds because that's what's going to save lives, right? At the initial distance, I believe, is whoever puts round on target first,
Fastest.
probably going to win, right? Now, granted, we are responsible for every round that leaves our gun, so there's got to be a happy medium in the way we teach it. But do you think that teaching the fundamentals, right, the way that we traditionally think of fundamentals, all right? So we're talking about stance, grip, side alignment, side picture, breathing, trigger squeeze, follow through. I feel I'm forgetting one, I'm not sure. But, you know, is that beneficial or is that setting it out for failure?
So again, I'll play a slight devil's advocate. We gotta have fundamentals, but they need to be taught kind of similar to how we teach as a principle and not necessarily as specific techniques. It should be principle based because one thing empirically that I've seen as a firearms instructor, and I've seen senior firearms instructor do is you have to hold the firearm this way, you have to do this. But what if my hand is bigger than your hand? What if I'm shorter than you, weaker than you, etc.? There's a lot of variables with individuals, and you're forcing them to fit a mold that they may not be able to fit. Right. But if you give them a principle, then they can adjust that principle to themselves and how they may fire that firearm.
In my mind, all of those fundamentals come down to one big element, that principle that you talk about, and that is minimizing movement, right?
Yes.
If I minimize movement of the gun, then I'm more likely to be on target. Right, you talk about the way we hold a gun. There's no argument that proper grip is imperative to control the firearm. But what if I'm not standing? What if I'm laying down, right? The way I hold the gun, the way I present the gun would be different, right? So I don't feel like we're addressing that necessarily when teaching. And right now we're discussing law enforcement. This certainly goes to the general public as well.
Yes.
Right? I guess the one argument I would say for teaching those fundamentals, those basic principles, is that arguably if I get better at those fundamentals under stress, I'm more likely to be somewhat close to it. So if I learn to always stand a certain way, grab the gun a certain way, and present it a certain manner, as a result, under stress, when all of that in theory goes out the window, my body may fall back on those ingrained muscle memory patterns, hopefully.
Yes.
Right? So I do agree with you. I think principles are key. I also feel that the way we teach it should change somewhat. We need to start incorporating some stress inoculation drill into fire training.
Absolutely.
In a safe manner.
Yes, and
risk.
agencies aren't doing that, but there needs to be a more focus on that.
So if you could do one change, make one change to the way we teach law enforcement firearms right now, what would you do?
If we're talking about entry level, I would say try to categorize your shooters by experience and familiarity. It's the gummy bears. Too many gummy bears. They had a fiesta in my mouth.
Nice.
But
I got nothing.
But this way you can approach it as needed. You know, it's like you don't treat a burn wound with non-burn medicine. You know, you address it as is. So you and again, this is resource time, instructors, etc. But separate the ones who've never fired a firearm before. Separate the ones who have a little more empirical experience with firearms, and then train and adjust from there. That way, you're kind of catching everyone up together, and you can start addressing the more aggressive nature of firearms work and stuff like that. Because getting everyone on the line saying you have to hold it this way, you have to stand this way, I think it's detrimental sometimes. I've got yelled at many times on the line because I shoot differently, and I'm not doing it the way it's always been done, which is the most nauseating thing I've ever heard.
And to build on that, just hearing your stories in the past, you doing things a little bit less traditional, yet scoring higher than some of the other people.
Yes.
That created some friction, I know.
Lots of friction in my law enforcement career because I did things differently, but it was more precise. And it's unfortunate because institutionally and, you know, for many police departments, they get stuck in that, you know, this is the way we've always done it, we have to do it this way. But there's more than one way to do things. And again, it goes back to everyone's different. Give them the principles. Kind of like General Patton said, when you need something done, you don't tell someone to do it. You tell them what needs to be done, give them the resources to do it,
let them do it.
and let them do it.
Right. Yep. That's all I did. The difference between leading and managing, right? Perfect. So just some food for thought. Would love to hear your feedback. Tell us what you think, what you see out there, what the trends are, and where would you like to go with it? Because honestly, as a firearm instructor, and I know Steve is in the same boat, when we go and teach a class, we want our students to live with tools that are applicable, not theory, but practicality, right? So the way we shoot may not win your competitions. You may not necessarily hit the bullseye, but you win the fight when it actually. Yeah, you do. But you are the exception to the rule. You're the exception to a lot of rules.
Yeah.
So, yep, as always, hit us up on social media. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and obviously YouTube. Send us questions. Make as many comments as you can, please. It helps us make these videos better. And we'll see you next time.
Hey, and join me for my next surgery. We'll talk about engaging threats injured.
From a wheelchair.
From a wheelchair.
Where do you conceal a gun when you're in a wheelchair?
I just read a good article on that. But anyway, next month, stand by, surgery, BK will be there taking care of me, and you guys will be there too.
And you'll see some inside footage of that one. Until next time, watch your six. New camera, no lighting, new microphone. I'm a little blind.
Oh, you got a nice bicep, man. That's a nice definition there.
It's getting there. That's because I'm too skinny. I need to bulk up.
I'm not. I have a hard time with biceps.
I think these pants make me look good.